HQ presents The Girl from Galloway by Doughty. Read by Aoife Mcmahon. Author's note. In 1845, Ireland was ruled by Queen Victoria. Irish members of Parliament went to London and represented all 32 Irish counties. The only internal divisions in Ireland were the ancient provinces Ulster, Leinster, Munster and Connacht. Donegal is the most northern and westerly county in the northern province of Ulster, which is made up of 9 counties. Every schoolchild could recite them in geographical order: Armagh, Down, Antrim, Londonderry, Tyrone, Fermanagh, Donegal, Cavan and Monaghan. Throughout the period of our story, most people in all 4 provinces spoke Irish, unless they had come from Scotland or England in the first place. Many Irish speakers from Donegal went to Scotland each year to help with the harvest. There they learnt a second language, which they called Scotch, but we would call English. Chapter 1. Ardtur, County Donegal, April 1845. Hannah McGinley put down her sewing and moved across the tramped earth floor to where the door of the cottage stood open through all the daylight hours, except in the coldest and stormiest of weather. She stood on the well-swept doorstone, looked up at the pale, overcast sky, and ran her eye along the stone walls that enclosed their small patch of potato garden. Beyond the wall, the hawthorns partly masked the stony track which ran down the mountainside. There was no sign of them yet. No familiar figures walked, ran or skipped up the narrow rocky path leading steeply up the mountainside from the border track that ran along the lower contours of the mountain. Below that, the final bush-filled slopes dropped more gently to the shore of Loch Garten. The only movement she could detect in the deep quiet of the grey, late April afternoon were flickers of light reflected from the calm surface of the lake itself, just visible between the still bare trees and the pale rise of smoke from the cottage of her nearest neighbour. Dotted along the mountainside above the lake, clusters of cottages, like Ardtur itself, huddled together in the shelter of the mountain, its brooding shape offering some defence against the battering of westerly winds from the Atlantic. Westerlies that brought both mildness and heavy rain to this rugged landscape. She moved back to the hearth, hung the kettle over the glowing embers of the turf fire, and took up her sewing again. She paused to push back a few strands of long, fair hair that had escaped from the ribbon with which she tied it firmly each morning. Touching the gleaming strands, she smiled to herself, thinking of her daughter. Rose was as dark as she herself was fair, her eyes and colouring so like Patrick, her husband, while Sam, a year younger, pale-skinned and red-haired, so closely resembled her father, Duncan Mackay, far away in Scotland where she had been born and grew up. They were good children, always willing to help with whatever task she might have in hand. Rose, the older, patient and thoughtful. Sam, quick, often impatient, but always willing to do as she asked. Even now, though he was lightly built and only 8 years old, he would run to help if he saw her move to lift a creel of potatoes or turf, to pick up the empty pails to fetch water from the well. She thought for a moment of her everyday tasks and reflected that she had not become entirely familiar with the harsh yet beautiful place where she'd lived for the 10 years of her married life. Of Galloway, and the view from the south-facing window of the bedroom she had shared with one of her older sisters. Then she had seen a very different landscape: green fields and trees sloping gently towards the seashore, rich pasture dotted with sheep, well cared for and prosperous. The delight of her hard-working father, who loved his land as well as, or perhaps even better, than he loved his God. Duncan Mackay was seen by many as a hard man, one who did not suffer fools gladly. Shrewd in his dealings, strong in his covenanter beliefs,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?